Welcome back to our conversation with the Candidate Special. The perception for many voters we speak to is that the country feels more divided than it's been in decades. The feeling of us versus them, the nasty rhetoric, all things that were addressed by the candidates in our series, including the Republican primary candidate who's been challenging President Trump for months now.
I think the job of the president is to make everybody feel good about being an American, and I think it's bad for the whole country, and from a prudential point of view, by prudential I mean preserving social cohesion, if people live in the shadows. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I was the first guy out of the block with gay and lesbian civil rights my first year in office, and I was, believe me, by myself for 20, 25 years there, because I think when people live in the shadows, that should not exist in a democracy. You know, that can exist under tyranny because that's part of what the tyrant wants. Well, I try to do sort of the same type of thing I did as governor. I put in place policies that would unleash everybody's energies, make everybody feel included. My cabinet was eight women and 3 men, and always included minorities. I didn't want anyone to feel that they weren't part of the equation. So that's something I would want to bring to Washington, where, guess what? It doesn't reside right now. You know, it's not only the president. The situation of the D and the R parties, they sometimes seem to me to exist mainly for the purpose of killing the other party. You know, I made a great point of meeting with the Democratic legislature leaders every week. Because it's hard to, you know, stab somebody in the back if you know you're going to see them over coffee and cookies sometime in the next 7 days. And that was very successful, and they've kept that tradition to this day.
I'm literally the only one in this field that won in a state that Donald Trump won. And I think that we need to both not only bring out our base, but we also got to win back places that we lost. Anybody that thinks it's going to be enough just to be against Donald Trump, I think is mistaken. We need to actually be able to win back places we lost. We also have to give people a reason to vote for us, not just against him. This is a dangerous, from my perspective, a dangerous time in this 243-year experiment called representative democracy. We are more divided than any time in our nation's history. And forget about cable TV or Twitter. I mean, politics is dividing us at our Thanksgiving tables. And that's not the promise of America. So I also think I'm the only one in this field that's actually been able to demonstrate that you can bridge divides and get meaningful progressive policy done. I think I offer something by being outside of Washington, D.C. D.C.'s often become a place where talking about an issue is a substitute for doing something about the issue. And I think as a governor, as someone that, as an executive that's actually had to do many of the things that we're talking about and do it in a way that can positively impact people's lives, I offer something significant from this field as well.
All of us need to remember that the foundational principle of this country is unity in diversity, out of many, one. I think we all need to take a deep breath and remember that none of us have a monopoly on truth. Other people do not owe it to you to agree with you. There are high-minded conservative principles and there are high-minded liberal principles. We need a consensus of people of goodwill who know that. I think a smug, self-righteous, intolerant left-winger is no more or less dangerous to the emotional fabric of this country than a smug, self-righteous, intolerant right-winger. We need people to take a deep breath, to know that none of us, as I said, have a monopoly on truth. Other people, whether they agree with you or not, have values as well and care about life as you do. And when we find that center within ourselves, then we acknowledge that place in other people. It's a change in our own hearts that has to happen in order for us to reclaim the public discourse of honor and goodness. We're here to love each other. And when you forget that, things fall into chaos. And that is as true of a nation as it is of an individual. All that a nation is a group of people. So the same spiritual and moral principles that prevail within the life of an individual prevail within the life of a nation. And that includes, love includes radical honesty with oneself, admitting your own character defects, admitting where you haven't been who you say you are. And that's why I feel that I'm uniquely qualified to help navigate these times. because I feel that I can, along with the American people, with love for this country, take a deep look. Where are we not now who we say we are?
I learned a lesson a long time ago, most important lesson I learned in public life, that it's always appropriate to question another man or woman's judgment, never their motive. Once you say the reason why you disagree with me is you're in the pocket of boom, we can never get to go. We can never get to an agreement. And so it starts off by treating other people with decency, not attacking motive, saying, I think you're dead wrong about your position, Senator so-and-so, on not reauthorizing the violence against women. I don't say you're against this because you beat your wife. I'm being a bit facetious, but you understand what I'm saying. It requires civility. And one of the things, by the way, we all have to do, think about it. When's the last time there was a serious storm and your sewer got backed up and you want to thank the guy who kept the sewer from flooding into your... I'm not joking, I'm being deadly earnest. And thank you for the job they've done. Or you got a storm and the person's climbing up in the middle of the storm hooking up that generator. When's the last time you went out and said, thank you, thank you? It's about being civil. It's like those commercials, opening the door. A combination of a whole lot of things has put us to the position where we're not acting like who we are as a people. There's an American creed. It's about decency, honor, respect, leaving no one behind. I really mean it. Think about it. Think about it. We haven't always lived up to it, but it's been the essence of who we are. You need help? I'm here to help. We're not doing it.
Few issues in this election are as fundamental, touching every single voter, as health care. And the audience members in our conversations asked a lot of questions about this topic. From Medicare to drug prices, mental health care to medical research. Many of the Democratic candidates had similar philosophies, but there are differences when it comes to strategy for real change.
Medicare for All will provide comprehensive health care to all people without deductibles and without co-payments. And if you think that's too good to be true, that exists in many other countries around the world. Now, one of the reasons that we have not yet done what Canada and other countries have done is the incredible power of the pharmaceutical industry and the insurance companies. All right, you didn't ask me about the cost of prescription drugs. Why do you think we pay twice as much for prescription drugs as do the people of any other country? Because last year, the top 10 drug companies made $69 billion in profit, and 1 out of 5 Americans can't even afford the prescription drugs their doctors prescribe. These are very powerful entities. The insurance companies have unlimited amounts of money as they rip off the American people, and so do the insurance companies. But I think what the American people understand is that health care is a human right, that all people should be able to get the prescription drugs they need without being ripped off. And we're going to take on the drug companies, and we're going to take on the insurance companies. And here on WMUR, you know what you're going to see? A lot of 30-second ads attacking Bernie Sanders as a terrible human being. Because these guys they love the status quo. CEOs get huge compensation packages. These guys make billions. But the time is now to finally say healthcare is a human right. Everybody should be able to get the healthcare they need without those deductibles and without those co-payments.
I believe that we need a new healthcare system. I grew up with a grandmother who had diabetes, and my brother Joaquin and I watched as we got older and she got older. We watched her condition get worse and worse until right before she passed away in early 1996, she had to have one of her feet amputated, which is very common for people with severe diabetes. She had type 2 diabetes. That whole time, though, she had Medicare. I want to strengthen Medicare for the people who are on it, who have it, and then make sure that everybody can have access to Medicare if they want it. As part of that, I believe that we should do things like ensure that the government can negotiate drug prices, right? And that we're able to lower prescription drug costs because of that. There are too many people up here in New Hampshire, for instance, or in my neck of the woods of Texas, up here in New Hampshire, who have to go to Canada to get cheaper drugs, or in Texas, they go to Mexico. That should never be the case in the United States. And I will support all efforts, all legislation, to ensure that we can bring down that cost. But ultimately, we need to change our healthcare system to one where health care and medication is available to everybody.
Drug pricing is one of the most emotional topics in America because at some level, drug companies are coming up with things, and they're going to continue to come up with things that are going to save lives and make people be able to live much more healthily while they're alive. And I think we should start by saying part of the genius of America is we are going to solve a lot of things that would have killed us a generation ago. You know, you think about breast cancer. That used to be a death sentence. Leukemia, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The American medical research, cohort is doing and has done incredible things for us. And that's part of, the great part of America. But the way it works, I don't know how much you guys know about this, but basically, if you get a new drug that's permitted by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, you get a patent on it that only you can make it for 7 years. And you get to charge whatever you want, which if you have a drug that's going to keep people alive, you can charge a lot. We all know that. But at the end of 7 years, the patent's supposed to run out. And that's when the system gets really spooky, and I'll tell you why. They do a bunch of things that, in my mind, the government should never allow them to do. They do a bunch of things to extend that patent for years so that instead of it going from being on patent to become a generic drug that everybody can make, they extend it in a variety of ways, including ways that I consider straightforwardly unethical. And that is where I think we have the problem, because I know that we have to incent people to risk hundreds of millions of dollars to develop that drug in the first place.
As candidates promise to find common ground with opponents, some Democrats are questioning whether their party is headed too far to the left. Hear what the candidates had to say about socialism ahead. Also coming up, what plans do candidates have for the economy? What's working, what's not, and how to keep American workers competitive in the 21st century. And we'll take you behind the scenes of these conversations to see what it all looks like from the candidate's point of view.